You'll find that folks will comment and they'll just say, we've taken their land. We've taken the elk's land. We've taken the bear's land. And I'm thinking, well, I will believe you a little more if you will sell your house or bulldoze it and give your land back. But they usually apply it selectively, not to themselves, but to others that would build or come. And I think we're just starting with the wrong conception. Granted, I want us to think as residents of Colorado, what does good conservation of all these beautiful creatures look like? But it doesn't look like the assumption that all the land belongs to the animals and we have no land. That's totally unbiblical thinking. Rather, this state has been given to us to take dominion of.
To the Generations broadcast. Kevin Swanson with you today, and Joshua Suiza also in studio with us for another segment of What Does the Bible Say About That? In this case, we want to ask the question today, Josh, what does the Bible say about pets, animals, animal care, animal conservation?
Animal rights.
Animal rights, the animal rights movement, right. It's very, very big today. I think we see a different perspective towards animals today than we did when I was a child.
It's shifted,
in the 1960s.
It seems.
Things have changed dramatically. Stroller sales in South Korea have burgeoned. More strollers for dogs than for human babies.
Yeah, the stroller companies had to pivot. They're like, we're not selling them for children. Let's sell them for dogs. And
more strollers for dogs in South Korea. So that's what's Wall Street Journal came out with that story this last week. Japan also, more pet dogs and cats combined than children under age 15, 20 million pets, 17 million children. In Spain, it's even worse, 15 million pets, 6.6 million children. So that's a ratio of about 2.5.
Yeah.
More pets than children. So, yeah, that's been on the rise for a while. Of course, you've got the birth implosion that's taken out these countries. Spain and South Korea are known to have anywhere 0.7 to 1.1 child per woman who is childbearing age. So, yeah, you're looking at birth implosion, anything under 2.1, and you're looking at these nations having their population within the next, say, 30, 40 years or 50 years.
They already have that problem. And then if they want to keep their social welfare systems going, it's worth pointing out that dogs and cats cannot factor into the worker to retiree ratio, right?
That's right.
They do not pay.
They don't
they also don't really go beyond your retirement in terms of their length of life either. So they're not going to help you on that level.
That's right. So, and wow, have you been to Walmart lately? Walmart, 4 aisles dedicated to pet food, pet toys.
It's a big deal.
That's a lot, man. Apparently they're selling toys and everything else.
Yes.
So what does the Bible say about pets? Now, what does the Bible say about children? Maybe we should ask that question first. And the Bible actually says children are a blessing. The fruit of the womb is God's reward upon each family, and happy is the man who has his quiver full of them.
Right.
And that, of course, now barrenness is something that's considered a value to the modern thinking. So if you're barren, that's a good thing, right? That's effectively what they're saying today.
And yet the opposite of what scriptural fruitfulness
you don't see that with Sarai. You don't see that with Hannah.
It was considered to be a very difficult thing.
Horrible condition to be found in. Job lost his children, then gained, 8 or 10 of them back. So at the end of the day, the Bible actually does consider children to be a value. And, of course, we've said this before many times, but the average size of the average home in America doubled since 1950, while the number of children has been cut in half.
Yeah.
And maybe a little more so than half at this point. So half the children, double the drywall.
Yeah,
or sheetrock.
Seems odd. We should be, increasing drywall with the increase of children. Would seem to make sense, but
double the sheetrock, half the kids. So what does that tell you? What it tells you is that Americans love sheetrock.
Yeah,
that's what it tells you.
And really pretty sheetrock with other things on it.
Well, it's nice to have decor on it.
Yes,
sure,
of course.
Sure, exactly.
Well painted,
but
and maybe
Americans
a TV hanging
love
on.
sheetrock. Just go home and love it. You just hug. Just hug your sheetrock. I love my sheetrock. In fact, cut off a piece and kind of hold it in your arms during the evening hours.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So beautiful. Anyway, it turns out that they like pets actually more than children on average. This is the average home in many of the developed nations around the world today. So I guess my question is why? Why do families love pets more than children? They don't consider children a blessing of the Lord. In fact, I'm thinking we had 5 children. How many times do we hear that? Do you know where those come from?
Yeah, as if you're ignorant of such things.
As if you're ignorant of such things.
Right.
Or, have you ever heard of birth control? Or, statements like that. One woman said to my wife, when she said, are those yours? And my wife said, yes. And she said, I've got 2. You want them?
Ouch. That's so sad.
It's pretty sad. Yeah. She'd probably trade them for a dog and a cat.
Yeah.
But that's where things are today. And that's because the value system is upside down. That's because, maybe this self-centered materialistic lifestyle, which, by the way, has also resulted in the slaughter of anywhere between 80 million and 120 million children, depending on how you count the kids killed by abortifacients. But that's a lot of killing. That's a ton of killing.
Right.
To kill that many kids, you're thinking about 80 million. I mean, that's, what is that, 15 times the
it's an overwhelming
Holocaust
number to try to get your head around.
Of Germany. Yeah. So it's just a ton of children being tossed into, the garbage. So you toss that many kids into the garbage, you have to say there's a reason why people do this.
Yes.
It has to have something to do with self-worship or selfishness.
That same kind of practice being inflicted upon dogs would be considered a horrific thing by many of the secularists, I believe, that would, because you sometimes find those that are the most supportive of abortion rights will then also be very supportive of a certain view of animal rights, which involves caring for animals in a particular way to elevate them to almost a human level or above in some cases.
Well, I mean, there's laws against killing animals, even your own pets.
Yeah.
I'm guessing maybe in some states you simply can't do that.
Yeah.
You'd have to, if you're euthanizing, you have to take the pet off
a certain
to some
path.
professional somewhere. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So why do people like pets more than they like children? And you said off air, you think pets are easier than children.
Yeah, in certain ways. Now, I mean, I've talked to people that'll have a few dogs, and my dad is actually one who cares for many dogs, so he knows what that's like. And no doubt they involve a lot of physical care. You got to feed them, clean them, walk them. So I understand that there's a general labor investment that's involved with caring for animals, for sure. The difference, though, is that dogs don't ever judge you. They don't talk back to you. No. They don't break relationship with you.
Well,
and these are things
occasionally our beagle, if it's ignored too much, our beagle will pee in the basement.
Okay, so there could be a little bit of fallout.
This little attitude issue takes
right,
up.
All right.
So, I'm like, what did you do that for?
Right.
Is it some kind of bad attitude this morning? I mean, what's going on with the beagle?
Yeah, and there's still not the same level of relational investment and challenge.
That's true.
It's a fundamental difference there, I think.
Once you feed them, they're your friend one more time.
Yeah, it's easy to build those relationships.
You're good to go.
Right. Yeah.
That's where beagles are anyway.
Easily pleased. Yeah.
They don't argue with you. You can lock them up.
Yeah, you can technically
put them in a cage. You can cage them.
Right.
And we cage our animals. And by the way, there's a process in training animals to be okay with being caged. And you do that early on.
Right.
My daughters are pretty good at training pets, and we did some dog breeding for a time.
Yeah.
These pets are great, and so I guess children. I mean, hey, they've got a nature issue. They've got. Right, there's a sinful nature.
Yes,
and that's
a challenge.
A bit of a challenge for your average parent, not just for a Christian parent, but non-Christian parents.
Yeah,
their children melt down. They throw a temper tantrum in the middle of the shopping center. It's parents are irritated by that kind of thing. They don't want that.
It's also a much longer term relationship, generally speaking.
18 years.
Children, you'll live far beyond you too. You're going to have this relationship and connection.
But there's a ton of investment early on. So a pet is about ready to go within 6, 8, 12 weeks. They can pretty much do things. They can eat, they can pee, they can do whatever.
But raising a child,
But a child,
20 years.
You're looking at 6,477 diapers. Yeah. You're looking at caring for them day in, day out, training, teaching, educating. They say children are expensive as well. Now, pets are getting increasingly expensive.
They are.
But children, yes, it takes a bit of investment. Well, how do we look at pets? The Bible allows for, pets, I believe. The prophet Nathan's story of the lamb that would, lie in the man's arms and eat at his table. I think he'd even sip in his cup.
Yeah, be with his family, and it says that it was as like a daughter to him.
Like a daughter to him.
Yeah, it was very close, very precious to him.
That pet in Nathan's parable was something of a pet and something well cared for. It was used as an analogy in his approach to King David, and that David had stolen somebody else's wife and committed adultery with somebody else's wife. So that was the root of the story. But Proverbs 12:10 is one of the key verses relating to animals. A righteous man regards the life of his animal, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. So there must be some care for the life of the animal.
Right. And this is considered a righteous thing, that you care well for these animals that are entrusted to you, that we're not mistreating this part of God's creation. We're taking good dominion, which also involves proper care of such creatures. That's important.
Well, and of course, eating animals is appropriate, right? Yes. Animals are there for our enjoyment and consumption, and animals were used for animal sacrifices in the Old Testament. And Josh, it was difficult for us to hunt animals. It was difficult to kill the animal. Now, we had no trouble getting on down to the grocery store and picking up the meat.
Right, yeah, animals.
But it was the killing the animal that I think my daughters would cry a bit. And we would acknowledge that this is a result of the fall, that yes, we were the ones who sinned. It was our fault that we sinned against God, brought death upon the earth, and that eventually resulted in the consumption of meat. And I think the anti-hunters and the anti-meat eaters, the people who are principally against it, in other words, not just in terms of it's liberty, for you to go ahead and consume, I'm not going to, that's all right. But the people that are principally against any kind of killing of animals and the consumption of animal meat are not acknowledging the fall.
Yeah.
Because there is something about the fall that results in sacrifice in the Old Testament years, and then the consumption of the animals consumed or presented on the altar. Okay, so I connect the consumption of meat with the fall of man in the garden. So it's an acknowledgement of that. Now, God gives us the meat as a blessing for us, and yet let's not forget that man was the problem. And the fact that our animals die is a sinful, or as a sad and difficult thing that's a result of the sinfulness of man. Right. And so that's something else I pointed out. When we lose a pet, I'll say, well, that's not his fault. That's our fault.
Yeah.
We brought sin and then death upon the world when Adam ate of that fruit in the garden.
Yeah, and it keeps that worldview consideration in front of us, Kevin, which I think is really good for us to remember. Okay, how did this all come about? Why is there death in the world in general? But for those that want to completely get rid of ever killing any animals at all, they're attempting to sort of gain a utopia which is not going to last, nor is it even acknowledging the reality of sin in the world. So I think that's a problem. And I have noticed with hunters that those that care the most for these animals, that hunt them regularly and hunt them wisely, really do care for their long-term conservation and well-being. I think of like Ducks Unlimited as a particular organization where they support the hunting of waterfowl, but they care very much that waterfowl are preserved long-term, that waterfowl thrive, that they have the places they need to exist, because we wouldn't be able to keep hunting them, for one thing, but we also appreciate and love these creatures. And hopefully as Christians, we come at it from the angle of saying we appreciate the glory, wisdom, and power and beauty of God that's evidenced in these creatures.
There's a point at which people go beyond that and they begin to worship the creature rather than the creator, and everything turns upside down, and the dominion mandate effectively dissolves. And God has assigned to us as man to take dominion over, to rule over, to establish some control over the animal kingdom. We have a responsibility to do that. I think Psalm 8 says we were created a little lower than the angels and crowned with glory and honor, that we would take dominion over all of the beasts of the field, etc.
Yeah, it says you've put all things under his feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, the fish of the sea. All the creatures are under the dominion of mankind.
And so we should take that seriously, that we're to take dominion of this. And absolutely, it is appropriate for us to kill the animals if it is for our benefit, if it's for our food and provision. Now, when it comes to pets, is there a point at which we can step over the line? I think we were looking at a $4,000, $6,000 surgery for one of our dogs. We put the dog in a brace and changed its diet up a little bit, and praise God, we didn't need anything more than that. So
that's good.
Now, but should we invest $16,000, $6,000 for the surgery for some dog or cat? I think that's something that Christians need to consider. Is it possible that this may not fit into our worldview, particularly if the kid needs braces? 2 or 3 of our children need braces. You put off the braces for a $16,000 surgery for the dog.
Yeah.
It's a question of priorities,
Right.
and that priority system is set by what God gives us in Psalm 8.
Right.
He says we are below the angels, but the animals are below us, and we don't serve the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom serves us.
Right.
And so that order is absolutely critical in a biblical understanding of this created reality.
Yeah, Jesus said in Matthew 10, you are of more value than many sparrows.
Good point. Right.
And so hence we need to see, okay, human beings are of more value than animals, but that has been overturned in many modern conceptions here.
And yet it's appropriate to take care of them.
Yes.
And it's appropriate to see that they multiply, that you're not going to wind up with a loss of the ducks.
Yeah.
You want the ducks. You want to keep the duck population healthy in South Dakota or wherever you're.
For a variety of reasons.
Or
It's a good
Texas or
thing.
wherever, right. So now, it's not as if the animals own the land. You get this idea sometime that nobody wants anybody to build anything more, say in Colorado, because we want all this space for the animals to roam free.
Yeah, we have that challenge in Douglas County, especially I find that on Nextdoor comments when I'm reading from different residents. And we live in one of the wealthiest counties in the country with some of the largest homes.
I think it's number 5 or number 6 for the country. It's
big.
And if you took Virginia and Maryland out, we'd be about number 1.
Yeah, so that gives you a sense.
Yeah.
And you'll find that folks will comment and they'll just say, we've taken their land. We've taken the elk's land. We've taken the bear's land. And I'm thinking, well, I will believe you a little more if you will sell your house or bulldoze it and give your land back. But they usually apply it selectively, not to themselves, but to others that would build or come. And I think we're just starting with the wrong conception. Granted, I want us to think, as residents of Colorado, what does good conservation of all these beautiful creatures look like? But it doesn't look like the assumption that all the land belongs to the animals and we have no land. That's totally unbiblical thinking. Rather, this state has been given to us to take dominion of.
And it's totally valid to build your own private reserve. Like you were saying, you can bulldoze your house. You can create your own private reserve.
By
if you would like to. You can purchase 150,000 acres, create your own private reserve. You might want to tag the animals so they don't wander too far. If you want wolves on your reserve, for example, that's okay. I'm okay with somebody raising wolves on their reserve.
Take responsibility
just tag
for
them. Take responsibility for them. If the wolf gets over the boundaries and eats somebody else's cows, then you'll have to pay for the cows. I'm guessing you've budgeted that into the plan.
Better do that.
Right. So that's legit. That's absolutely legit. And actually, I've been to South Africa a number of times. There are public reserves, but there are also private reserves. And the private reserves are absolutely appropriate. As much as the land is turned over to private individuals, now private individuals can take care of this land. Is it the government's job to do this? Now, I don't think so. The government's job is defense and justice. Now, 54% of the land mass of anything west of the Mississippi belonging to the federal government, or to perhaps the state governments, a little bit of it to state governments. But I'm not sure that 54% of the land mass of Colorado and everything west of the Mississippi is what you need to do defense and justice.
They're not
defense,
using
you need
all
jails.
of
Justice, you need missile silos. There are a few missile silos in South Dakota and Wyoming and places like that. But I'm guessing it's on a few acres. What about the
Right.
other
There's so much
6.8
land.
million acres? Where does that go?
It would be interesting to consider what happened if it was privatized.
Well, we need to privatize it. This idea that the government owns the land. No. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof.
Yeah.
And he has given it. He more so stewarded out to individuals, private individuals. That's why the eighth commandment, thou shalt not steal, the assumption is that the property has been given to or taken over by people who take proper dominion of it.
Yes.
And that's one reason why the land actually, for the most part, didn't belong, at least to many Native American tribes. Why is that? Well, they didn't fence it. They didn't farm it. They didn't create their animal reserves.
Yeah.
They didn't create their ranches. They didn't take dominion over it. They just kind of wandered here and there, like nomads. I'm sorry, but nomads and Romanis, the Romanis of Europe, the people that wander from city to city. Some call them gypsies, some call them Romanis.
Yeah.
But the Romanis and the nomads, they don't own the land. Somebody else is going to have to come in, fence the land, provide for ranches, private reserves, farms, et cetera, and begin to use it, take dominion of it. If nobody takes dominion over it, nobody ever uses it, it needs to turn over to somebody else who will do that to it. Now, it's government's job to be sure that nobody steals your land, that nobody moves onto your land, takes advantage of your cows, your private reserve of wolves, et cetera, et cetera. They're not coming onto your private reserve to shoot your wolves or to, drag away your cows, rustle up your cows, or to mow down your farmland. They're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
The government is there to keep people from doing that kind of thing. They are effectively the referee in this business of private enterprise, and it is private persons who must own the land. And what we find in Colorado, what we find everywhere, is that private persons are way better at caring for the land, avoiding forest fires, creating fire breaks, et cetera, than the federal government. Why? Because who's the federal government? How much do they feel like they own it? How much ownership is there? There's no ownership. It's just people hired by this big, large federal government based in Washington, D.C. that's supposed to be, I guess, have an amazing amount of virtue to take care of everything that they've grabbed onto and have hoarded for themselves. Well, that's not the government's job to hoard things and then to take very, very poor care of those things they've hoarded. Rather, they need to allow for that land to be taken by farmers, ranchers, people who own private reserves to take care of this stuff. Now, it will turn out that God's system of economics, God's system of law is a much better way in which to take dominion over his creation. Now, why should I say that? Well, number one, he's given us the job to take dominion of his creation, and then he gave us the rules, his law, by which we will take proper dominion over his creation. We don't have to look to Karl Marx for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was thinking, Kevin, about the dominion mandate. Why is it necessary to actually subdue or steward land versus just being nomadic? And I was thinking of Genesis 1:28, where it says, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." That's just one part of it, have children. But then it also says, "And subdue it." Have dominion over it. So the idea of dominion, of this whole mandate, is to subdue, to have control over, and thus that necessitates what you're describing.
And go straight to Genesis 2, because the Lord God actually gives us an example of this. We're not leaving it into wasteland here. Yep. The Lord God sets an example. So if you wind up with wasteland, what do? Well, the Creator himself says, this is how we do it. Yes. And he planted a garden. He planted the garden, right? He put the garden in place.
Then put Adam in it.
He planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground, he made every tree grow, et cetera, et cetera. And then he assigned it to man to take care of his garden. He put the man in the garden to tend and to keep it. Verse 15 of Genesis 2, the Lord God said, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, et cetera. But God sets the example. So you wind up, showing up in Brazil somewhere, this big Amazon forest. This is what you're dealing with on day one in creation. You have this, and then God says, okay, here's what you do. Take the Amazon, and you take a portion of it, your first 40 acres of it. You give that off to Adam and Eve, or whoever it is, a small family, not a nomad tribe. Don't want any nomads here. What we want is somebody to take dominion of this 40 acres. Yeah. And so you fence it off, and you start growing and tending this portion of the Amazonian forest.
Right.
And then you give another 40 acres to somebody else, you get another 40 acres to somebody else. And that's how we take care of the earth.
Yeah. Versus the modern mind, which is don't touch it.
Worship
Stay
it.
away from it.
And worship it.
Yeah. It's quite the
Ridiculous.
opposite.
Utterly ridiculous. Okay, friends, probably the worldview that you have received has been totally perverted. I mean, we all have to some extent. If we listen to media, if we've been raised in the American humanistic, materialistic, anti-supernaturalistic, naturalistic worldview that's being taught in the 99% of schools across America and universities, then you've got the wrong perspective on the environment, the wrong perspective of man's purpose, the wrong perspective of man's place in creation. So the world itself gives us an upside-down, wrong view of everything. Let's give our children the right view of everything, especially concerning ourselves, our relationship to God, our relationship to one another, and of course, our relationship to the earth that God has created for us and for our good. But be sure, you understand his rules by which we are to take dominion, and let's teach those rules to our children. Well, that wraps up this edition of the Generations broadcast. I encourage you to my book on worldview. I think that would be a good place to start for any of our kids. You know, I wrote that book, Worldview, What We Believe, What They Believe, and Why They're Wrong, just to build in stronger foundations, shove some rebar into the foundations of the way that people look at everything. And highly recommend that. Also, there's that little book called What Does the Bible say about that?
Yeah, for
which is
younger children.
exactly what we're trying to deal with today. But that's for younger children. That's for 9-year-olds. Mm-hmm. So for 9-year-olds, it's what does the Bible say about that? For 17-year-olds or 18 or 81-year-olds, I'd recommend that larger book. It's called Worldview, What We Believe, What They Believe, and Why They're Wrong. And by the way, I'm doing a class on that for the last 4 months, and it's going to be about a 7-8 month class for about 16 young people who join that every Monday night at my home out here in the Eastern Plains of Colorado. And it's been very well attended. We serve a dinner, and then we have an hour-long presentation from that book, Worldview, and then they break up into smaller groups, prayer groups, and it goes on till about 9 p.m.
Yeah,
in
thankful
fact,
that's
oftentimes
happening.
I'm in bed before
And they're
it's
still
done.
going.
They're still going.
Yeah,
They're still praying.
that's
It's been a great group to draw in these very important subjects to equip the men and women of God to every good work. Be doing it in your home. We've got great resources at generations.org. Again, recommend the book Worldview and What Does the Bible Say About That? Available at generations.org. This is Kevin Swanson and Joshua Shwiso inviting you back again next time as we continue to lay down a vision for the next generation.